My neighbor's new Oldsmobile Lero, and they need a radio installed, so I went and picked up a harness for them because we are not doing any wire hacking in this car. And as you can see, everything has been soldered and heat shrink together, and now just to wrap it in some tape to make it look pretty, and it's ready to go in the car and get this new radio in. So I got it working. When I first connected it, it was not working. It turns out the power wire that's coded as red is not the same power wire that's coming out the original harness for the car. So I just had to move one wire around to give it power. Now I put the key in, and new radio turns on. And you got to make sure you wire. I've seen so many people wire these things up where they have constant power and then they just always drain and kill batteries on people's cars. So when you turn it off, the radio should turn off. And there we go. The yellow one is just for memory. And it's nice to see the harness works. Now I just gotta make it look pretty and wrap it up, and then put everything back inside of the car. It's all set. It looks like I'm gonna have to throw in the towel on this one. I really can't figure it out. Radiator was completely empty. Okay, so we got an overheating issue here. Radiator was completely empty. Customer was adding water into here, and trust me, it took me more time than I like to admit that the filler neck for the radiator was hidden underneath the stupid cover that Chevy put on here. It pissed me off. That's just ranting at this point. But on the subframe I could clearly see deck's cool. You know, it's wet, so it has to be leaking from somewhere, but I cannot replicate the problem. I can't find this leak, and my pressure tester is pretty much useless at this point because I don't have an adapter that fits this like real tight. I have one that seems like it fits, but whenever you try to pressurize it, it just leaks past the threads here. So since I can't find a problem, I'm gonna throw in the towel. I've wasted more than enough time on this car. I can't fix them all, unfortunately. So I think I'm gonna have to send him on his way, send him to a shop. What else? I had the car running maybe a half hour. It got up to temperature. Not a single drip of anything coming off the engine. So I don't know what to do. I can't pressurize it myself. While it's running, it doesn't drip anything. So I don't know where this leak is coming from. And I'm not going to start throwing parts at the car, you know, tell the guy, oh, it's your thermostat housing, it's your water pump, blah, you know, just wasting money, wasting time. Here we have a Buick Lucerne? I have no idea, whatever, doesn't matter. I wonder if it needs back brakes. And there's also a code for something in the front left suspension thingamajiggle. You know, I think it's like ride height sensors or something like that. So I have to check that out. Okay, so we are in the front right now. This is the sensor that we are getting a code for. And look at what I noticed. That is a major gap in the sway bar bushings. That's crazy. This thing has got to clunk around like crazy. Alright. Okay, so here's the sensor. I unplugged it, no green crusties. I did the tug test on the wires and they seem to be fine. So what I did next is I disconnected this arm from the lower control arm right there. And just to move it, you know, across its entire range while I was looking at the graph on my scanner here. And it seemed to work fine. There was no dropouts or anything like that. So the sensor seems to be working fine. So I noticed we also have codes for like the module losing power. So I asked the customer and she said, yeah, the battery was recently replaced. I'm like, okay, so we're not going to worry about that. So our code is for open circuit. Now one thing I also noticed is, look at this strut. It's a little dirty, but it's pretty much brand new. So someone was recently in here, and it's one of those electronically controlled struts or damper, whatever it is. So I'm wondering if whoever came in here to replace the strut for some reason disconnected this. Maybe, like I said, maybe someone disconnected this plug right here while they were replacing the strut for some reason, and that's what caused our open circuit code, and they never bothered to delete the code. I also deleted the codes to see if it was a hard fault, like if it would come back immediately, and no, I cleared it and no code has come back. So at this point, I'm not gonna dig any further into this. I'm just gonna leave the codes cleared, tell the customer about it, and if it comes back, then we'll look into it a little bit further. And my neighbor's Oldsmobile Arrow, the one that just put the radio in, and got some crazy misfires going on. Now the car had misfires when he bought it, but it's starting to get real bad now. Specifically, see cylinders 2 and 3, and it is shaking like crazy right now. Well, obviously, essentially only running on 2 cylinders. This thing is shaking like crazy. Alright then, so let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. It maybe looks like someone's been chasing this problem already, because all of this stuff looks new. The module here looks new. The coil pack assembly, I guess if you want to call it that, looks new. And you can see, here goes cylinders 1 and 4. Let's look on this side. You can see 1 and 4, the ones that were not misfiring. You see how they look kind of white, they got that white soot on top. Here goes the misfire cylinders 2 and 3. See how they look a lot cleaner. They smell like gasoline, so I don't think our misfire is fuel related. The gaps don't look off. I mean, they don't look like crazy big or anything like that. I wonder if this part's bad. Let's dig deeper. So I got the ignition coils separated from the module. First thing I noticed is there's only 2 screws holding it down when I'm pretty sure there should be 4. And you smell that? Nah, I didn't think so. But they smell like something is burning here. Another thing I noticed is, without even touching it, that clip is already broken right there. And look at that, it just wants to fall right off. Let's see if all of this just seems really sketchy to me. One thing you'll notice here is that one of these has been changed already. Don't know which one, but you can see they're not the same. One thing I did notice is if you look inside of here, see the one off to the left has that piece of metal exposed, and that's where this spring would sit. Just sits on top of there. But look at that one from the manufacturing process. It looks like there's like rubber or plastic right there, and that's right where the spring would be sitting. I wonder if it's somewhat insulating or just not letting it make a good contact. Don't know. Alright, so I have my meter here and I got it on continuity. Now I'm not sure if this is a valid test or not, but it's just something I noticed. On the left side here we have what I assume is the Duralast unit, and if we touch both of these together, there's no continuity. But if we come to the same ones on this side, you could hear my meter beeping. So there was a difference between the two. This is the one I'm suspecting is bad. Okay, so I did a continuity test between these 2 posts, and it turns out they correspond with these 2 posts on the left side here. And looking back at my footage, the one that came out on this side was this one right here. See what that says. Rich Porter. So that's the one that goes on here. And this is a waste spark system. So it kind of makes sense on why the two center were misfiring, which are cylinders 2 and 3, because this one coil feeds 2 and 3. This one has already been replaced. It looks like a Duralast unit, AutoZone. So we're just gonna end up replacing this one. Okay, so I have the new coil in it, and it's running super smooth now. Turned right on like a champ. I don't feel any misfires. Good, all my stuff is still saved here, but it's not the stuff I want to look at. So just put all the history stuff in here. And there we go. No more misfires on cylinders 2 and 3. Nice. Here we have the motive bleeder, and we're doing the entire brake system flush. So just going through each wheel one at a time. Should be all set afterwards. Here we have a Chevy, I don't know what this is. Chevy Cobalt, okay? It belongs to my neighbor. Now this is the same neighbor that has that HHR that someone told her she needed a wheel bearing, and it did not need a wheel bearing. All the suspension, the rack and pinion was all jacked up. So she decided to not put any more money into it and get a different car. What's funny is maybe like 2 or 3 days after I told her I wasn't going to put the wheel bearing on because it doesn't need it, because there's so many other problems with the car, she called me saying, hey, the car needs a jump start. So I go out there, and it had nothing to do with the battery. You turn the key and it just sounds like zzz. I've heard that plenty of times, checked it out, and the timing chain broke on it, which is the second time I've seen a timing chain break on an HHR. The first time was my mom's HHR. So that's really unfortunate, but like what a coincidence, right? Like 2 days after I look at it, I would have felt horrible had I done all that suspension work and in time. She has this new Chevy HHR, and it's a nice looking car. Looks nice and clean. Looks like an upgrade. But she's having some concerns that she said she turns the car off and yet the fans are still running. First thing I noticed after opening the hood is the reservoir is completely empty. You can see the coolant level way down there. Just a very hint of Dex coolant there. So it didn't take long for me to notice that the subframe is wet right there, right underneath the radiator. So I have not completely diagnosed a bad radiator here, but it's looking like it. The air filter, check that out already. Another thing I thought was interesting is I go to take this plastic cover off, right? And as soon as I take it off, I'm like, oh, it's missing a lug nut. But no, it's not. The lug nut is right there. It was on here that loose that it was able to come off just by turning these plastic caps. That's kind of scary. So now I have to go around the whole car and check all of the lug nuts. But let's keep digging into this and get the wheels off, see what else this car needs. The right side now, or I mean the left side, and it looks like someone just pad slapped it not so long ago. I guess it's not really a concern right now because there's still plenty of brake pad material left and the rotor. I know the customer's not going to want to invest the money in this, so we're just going to look past it. Going to need stabilizer bar bushings, and at that point, if I'm doing the bushings, I am replacing the links as well. Lower control arms look fine. I don't feel any play in the tie rods. So I think that's it for the front. I'm gonna go check out the back. At the back of the car, I did a quick wheel spin test and wobble test. See if there's any indication of a bad wheel bearing. Seems to be good. One thing I did notice is the rim has a pretty good hit going on right there. Look how much that's pushed in. It's probably not a concern of the customer. Okay, so another complaint from the customer is the car won't do a burnout, but obviously this thing burns out like you would not believe. Nah, I'm just joking. Basically, she suspects maybe one of the wheels was loose or something, because she could kind of feel a wobble, and it gets worse as you drive faster. And if you look closely at this wheel, there's a slight wobble in it. And the same exact thing on the driver's side. Now, don't pay attention to the hubcap. You have to look at the actual tire, and you can kind of see it move. Just like the back rim, I noticed this front rim right here has a big old dent in it. So from people hitting potholes and things like that, could be something else also. Maybe like a wheel bearing. But looks like the drive cycle monitors, it looks like everything has cleared except for the evap system. So I don't know if it just won't set because there's a problem, or because someone recently deleted the check engine light. It's not uncommon for cars that are being sold that the check engine lights are deleted. So we're just gonna give this some more time and see whenever that evap system decides to run its test, and see if it's okay. Here we have a Pontiac Aztek. The customer dropped it off for two things. Number one is possible brakes. Second thing, which is the most important, is smells like gasoline. So you go underneath the car, you can already see a puddle. Okay, so just looking the car over from underneath, you can see the oil pan is completely drenched in oil, and so is the starter. Most times it turns out to be the oil pressure sensor because it's right there. See if I could use my mirror. Yeah, I could already see it, but I know it's not going to show up on camera. Maybe I'll just put the whole phone on there. So put your seatbelts on, we're going in. And there we go. So that bad boy usually just leaks and pukes out all kinds of oil and works its way down onto the starter and the oil pan. I'm on Rock Auto's website, and this right here looks like the part we need. I see at the bottom it says requires filter with male fittings on both ends. The fuel filter that's on this vehicle has one male fitting and one female fitting, so I would have to change the fuel filter, which, I mean, if I was doing this job I would change it anyway, so that's not really a concern. But I was looking at where the line goes, and it pretty much bends underneath the body and comes up and snakes behind here and then makes its way around. This looks like a major pain in the butt. Honestly, I don't even want to, I don't know if I want to even take this job. It's a nice thing about working for myself is I get to pick and choose what I want to do. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this job. It just seems like way too much of a headache. We'll see how it works out. Pontiac Aztek has been sitting overnight. I want to check the oil, and there's absolutely nothing on dipstick. That means there's no oil inside this engine, or at least not enough. Especially if it's been sitting overnight, you would think all the oil inside the engine would drain all the way to the oil pan, but still, nothing shows up on the dipstick. Completely dry. So, like always in situations like this, I'm going to put used oil in the engine because used oil is better than no oil. Here getting these brakes done on this Pontiac. Turns out the slide pins were seized in place, and it's why the inside pad was worn down much more than the outside pad. But I got it all taken care of now. This turned out to be wasting more time trying to get the lug nuts off. So usually when they don't want to come off, I just pull out the biggest gun I have, which is this one. It's like 12 or 1300 foot-pounds, and it still would not come off. So then I had to pull out the torch, and it finally came off. But I mean, it's crazy how tight this thing was on there. There was 2 of them, but this one really put up a fight. I'm changing the oil pressure sensor. There it goes. This thing was just dumping oil out like crazy, like they always do. And I just added oil. Like I said, it's used oil, but it's better than no oil at all. And let's go ahead and check the dipstick. As you can see, we're at the full mark. So this one's all set. Front brake pads are done. Oil pressure sensor. Put some oil inside of the engine. And as far as that gasoline leak out that line, I'm not going to touch that. All money isn't good money. So sometimes you just got to draw a line and take it somewhere else.